Stalin's terror was a dark time for the church. Today, we ask, where was the church when the Soviet state demanded silence?
Welcome to Where Was the Church? I'm Caleb, and today Pastor Billy Dawes takes us into Soviet Russia under Joseph Stalin. We explore the church's response to tyranny and the brave stand of Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
The Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin was a place of fear and oppression. The church, a long-standing institution, faced a brutal reality. Stalin's reign, particularly from the late 1920s to his death in 1953, was marked by purges, forced labor camps, and widespread religious persecution. The church was not exempt. In 1930, Stalin launched a campaign against religion, aiming to eradicate it. Churches were closed, religious leaders were arrested, and believers were often sent to gulags. The 1929 anti-religious law restricted public worship and any religious activity outside state-sanctioned bounds. By 1939, only about 500 of the 54,000 churches in Russia before 1917 remained open. The Russian Orthodox Church, once a powerful entity, was silenced, its leaders imprisoned or executed. In this climate, many church leaders buckled under pressure. They conformed to state demands, fearing reprisal. The church's voice was stifled, its message diluted. An official church emerged, compliant with the state, often denouncing those who resisted. This was a profound failure. But there were pockets of resistance. Some pastors held secret services, defying the state's decree. The underground church movement grew, meeting in homes, forests, and caves to worship in secret. Yet the price was high. Arrest, torture, and death awaited many. Georgy Vins, a Baptist pastor, became a notable figure, leading the unregistered church movement. He was imprisoned multiple times, but remained steadfast, a testament to faith in hardship. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, not a church leader, but a devout believer, entered the scene. In 1945, Solzhenitsyn, a captain in the Red Army, was arrested for writing critical letters about Stalin. Sentenced to 8 years in a labor camp, he witnessed firsthand the regime's cruelty. His faith sustained him, and he emerged with a mission to expose the truth. In 1978, long after his release, Solzhenitsyn delivered a powerful commencement address at Harvard University. He spoke of the moral decline in the West and warned against complacency in the face of evil. His message resonated: truth must be defended, regardless of the cost. To understand the wider church's faltering stance during these times, it is essential to delve into the intricate web of state control over religious life. The government's tool, the League of Militant Atheists, founded in 1925, played a pivotal role in spreading anti-religious propaganda. By 1932, membership had swelled to over 5 million, and its members actively worked to undermine religious influence through public demonstrations, lectures, and literature that mocked faith as archaic and superstitious. In the 1937 census, when the government sought to gauge the religious commitment of the Soviet populace, the results were alarming for the regime. Despite years of anti-religious campaigning, the census revealed that a significant portion of the population still identified as religious. This revelation led Stalin to intensify persecution, targeting not only clergy but also ordinary believers. The Great Purge of 1937-1938 saw thousands of clergy arrested, and an untold number of believers were swept up in the terror. In this dark period, one of the few bright spots was the courage of figures like Metropolitan Sergius, who, despite initially cooperating with the Soviet regime in an effort to preserve the church, was privately instrumental in maintaining the Orthodox faith. He navigated a treacherous path, trying to protect the church from complete annihilation while facing criticism from both state authorities and church members who saw his actions as betrayal. Sergius's controversial declaration of loyalty in 1927 was a double-edged sword, securing the church's survival at the cost of its autonomy. As the war years approached, the dynamic changed slightly. The onset of World War II forced Stalin to reconsider his stance on religion. In 1943, seeking to rally the populace against the invading Nazis, Stalin allowed a limited revival of the church. This led to the election of Patriarch Sergius, a move that provided the church with a veneer of legitimacy, but did little to alleviate the state's grip on religious life. Yet, for many believers, this was an opportunity to openly express their faith after years of suppression. During this fragile thaw, the church managed to open some seminaries and print limited religious materials. However, the post-war period saw a return to stricter control, with Khrushchev's anti-religious campaign in the late 1950s and early 1960s further tightening the noose. By then, the church had learned to navigate the delicate balance between compliance and quiet resistance, a dance that continued through the decades of Soviet rule. In the midst of these struggles, the underground church movement persisted. Figures like Alexander Min, an Orthodox priest and theologian, emerged as spiritual leaders. Though officially ordained, Min operated on the fringes, delivering sermons that reached the hearts of many in secret gatherings. His work, promoting a Christianity that resonated with both the intellectual elite and the common Soviet citizen, left a lasting impact. Tragically, Min was assassinated in 1990, just as the Soviet Union was on the brink of collapse, a stark reminder of the enduring risk faced by those who dared to stand for their faith.
Hey folks, Caleb here. If today's episode stirs thoughts on rebuilding from brokenness, check out Pastor Billy Dawes' book, After the Storm. It's a guide for those seeking healing in marriages affected by alcoholism, offering hope and practical steps. You can find After the Storm on Amazon, and the link is in the description and pinned comment. It's a beacon of hope in trying times. We also ask that you pray for the ministry of Pastor Billy and his Under the Scope ministry. Please subscribe to this podcast so that you are notified every time a new episode is posted. And if this has been a blessing to you, would you consider giving to the needs of the ministry? You can find instructions on how to give in the first comment. Now let's get back to our study.
In the midst of Stalin's terror, a faithful remnant persevered. They met in secret, risking everything for their faith. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, though not an official church figure, became a symbol of courage. His writings revealed the Soviet oppressions and offered hope rooted in truth and integrity. The Bible offers a lens through which we can view their bravery. Matthew 10:28 says, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." Solzhenitsyn and others lived this truth. They feared God more than man, a choice that cost them dearly, but preserved their souls intact. One of the most striking examples of faith under pressure was the life of Metropolitan Veniamin, Yotis, in 1928, he was appointed as the Archbishop of the Russian Orthodox Church in the tumultuous years following the Russian Revolution. Despite the state's growing hostility towards organized religion, Veniamin remained steadfast in his commitment to his faith and his flock. He was arrested in 1930 during the waves of persecution that swept through the Soviet Union, part of Stalin's broader campaign to eliminate religious influence. The trials faced by believers weren't just limited to arrests and executions. The state confiscated church property, repurposing countless churches into warehouses or even public toilets, as seen in the case of the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow, which was demolished in 1931. The regime's message was clear: religion had no place in the Soviet future. Yet, even in the face of such desecration, underground networks of believers persisted, sharing scriptures and holding clandestine services. In 1943, when the tide of World War II began to turn against Germany, Stalin temporarily eased his grip on the church, seeking its support to boost morale. This reprieve allowed the election of Patriarch Sergius, who urged believers to support the Soviet war effort. It was a pragmatic alliance, but the persecution resumed with vigor once the war ended in 1945, as the state reasserted its atheistic stance. The story of Father Arseny, an Orthodox priest who survived the Soviet labor camps, is another testament to the resilience of faith. Arrested in 1933, he spent years in the brutal conditions of the Gulag. Despite the harsh environment, Father Arseny ministered to his fellow prisoners, offering spiritual solace and conducting secret services. His acts of compassion and spiritual leadership provided a lifeline for many, showing that even in the depths of despair, faith could flourish. Alexander Solzhenitsyn's experiences in the Gulag, which he detailed in the Gulag Archipelago, brought international attention to the plight of religious and political prisoners in the Soviet Union. His work highlighted the moral and spiritual degradation enforced by the regime, but also the unyielding spirit of those who refused to abandon their beliefs. Solzhenitsyn's expulsion from the Soviet Union in 1974 marked a turning point, as his writings continued to inspire and inform the world about the realities behind the Iron Curtain. The courage of these individuals and many unnamed others like them underscores the profound impact of faith amid oppression. Their stories are not just tales of endurance, but of active resistance against a regime that sought to control every aspect of life, including the human spirit. As we reflect on these histories, we are reminded of the enduring power of belief and the human capacity to stand against tyranny. The resilience of faith was further exemplified through the life and work of Pastor Georgy Vins. Born in 1928, Vins became a prominent leader in the unregistered Baptist community, which refused to comply with the state's stringent regulations on religious practice. He was first imprisoned in 1966 for his leadership role, and despite the hardships, he continued to advocate for religious freedom upon his release. His persistence led to further arrests, and in 1974, Vins was sentenced to 10 years in a labor camp. During his imprisonment, Vins maintained his spiritual duties, writing letters of encouragement to believers outside the camp and organizing covert prayer meetings among the inmates. His unwavering commitment drew international attention, leading to his eventual release in 1979 as part of a prisoner exchange with the United States, where he continued to speak out against religious oppression in the Soviet Union. The underground press, known as samizdat, also played a vital role in the survival of faith communities. It was through these clandestine publications that religious texts, sermons, and news of persecution circulated among believers. Courageous individuals like Anatoly Marchenko risked their lives to produce and distribute these materials, ensuring that the truth of religious repression reached both domestic and international audiences. Marchenko, a dissident writer, was repeatedly imprisoned for his efforts to expose the realities of life under Soviet rule. His 1969 book, My Testimony, shed light on the conditions in Soviet labor camps and was smuggled into the West, further galvanizing global support for human rights in the USSR. In the face of such adversity, small acts of defiance took on monumental significance. Each smuggled Bible, each whispered prayer, and each shared hymn became a thread in a tapestry of resistance woven by those who refused to let their faith be extinguished. As we continue, it's crucial to remember these stories, not just as historical accounts, but as living testaments to the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of tyranny. Before we go, 3 questions. What do we learn? The church's silence during Stalin's era warns us of the dangers of complacency. 1 Corinthians 10:11 says, "Now all these things happened unto them for ensamples mesus, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come." How do we make sure we never repeat it? We must resist the temptation to conform to state pressures, maintaining our witness even when pressured. Romans 12:2 instructs us, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." What do we do to strengthen the body? We must commit to community, support one another, and hold fast in our faith. Hebrews 10:25 encourages, "Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, nenes, and so much the more, as ye see the day approaching."
Thanks for joining us today on Where Was the Church? We hope the story of Alexander Solzhenitsyn inspires you to stand firm in faith. Be sure to follow us for more episodes. Until next time, may you find strength in the truth.